We haven't done this in a while.
It's going.
We're professional. It's November 18th, 2016, and we're here with Bob Beltz to hear his stories of early Clarkdale. Welcome, Bob. And Jerry Wombacher's here. He can have input into this too. Okay, we'll just start off with when your family came to Clarkdale. When and why?
I was born in Winfield, Kansas. My dad and his folks had a farm in close to Winfield, and but my grandparents got divorced, and my granddad was a contractor, and he went to California, and he was building 100 homes in San Pedro, small frame houses for the expansion over there. And my dad was a journeyman carpenter, and wasn't much farming going on anyhow, so he decided we should go to California and work there. That's where we were headed. We got as far as Phoenix, and my grandmother talked my dad into getting a job down in Phoenix for a short time. And his older brother worked in Jerome, and so Grandma finally talked my dad into coming up here to get a job, and we moved in September of 1928. I was 3 years old. I had an older brother, was born in 1921 back in Kansas, and a younger brother that was born down in Phoenix in March of 1928. When we got up here, there wasn't any houses available in Clarkdale. So we wound up camping on the Verde River below Black Bridge for about 3 weeks before we found a little house in Camp Verde.
Where's Black Bridge and
Black Bridge
Camp Verde?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And my mother, she went down to, well, my dad worked up in the Verde Central Mine was open then up in just above Jerome, up the canyon there. And my mother went down, we lived in a tent, and my mother went down to the Verde River to get a bucket of water to bring back and wash our clothes or whatever. And she was walking down the path and heard a rattle, and there was a rattlesnake in the path. So when my uncle and dad came home from work that afternoon, my mother told them about the rattlesnake. 3 little kids wandered around out there. We couldn't hold still for that, so we moved into the house for just a short time down in Camp Verde, and then found a house up in Clarkdale, District 3, House 41, down by, and we call it the Circle, down close to George Minot's and the Derrick family and Henry Ryan family.
Did your dad have a vehicle to drive to Jerome to work?
Oh yeah. Well, he bought that down in Phoenix. We came out from Kansas in 1923 Chevy soft top type, and he bought a 1927 Chevy 2-door sedan in Phoenix. That's what we had until 1934, I think, when he got the first new car he ever bought.
So you lived in District 3, number 41. Talk about that house.
Well, it had canvas flaps on the windows, no screen, and of course no windows. And my dad, he had to build all that in after we moved in. And didn't have a bathroom. We used an outhouse and extra large wash tub to bathe the kids.
Did you have running water?
Yeah, that was all just water. We didn't have electricity when I first moved in. An electrician by the name of Sullivan lived in the house where I live now, and he's the one that they put a pole out in the middle of the circle, and he's the one that run a line down there, and we had electricity for the first time. We used just coal oil lamps for that.
Do you remember what year that was that you got electricity? Approximately?
Oh,
How old you were, maybe?
I imagine it'd be 1929. I think we had it before 1930, but I'd say 1929.
Okay, so then your dad is still working in Jerome, and you're a little boy now, like, what, 6?
Well, well, see, 5 years old, I went to kindergarten down in Lower Clarkdale.
Okay.
And of course, we walked that way. And went through they had it set up to go through the 6th grade down there. But when I finished the 5th grade, they were overcrowded, so they opened up the middle building that later burned for the 6th grade. So I had 6th grade there. And through the primary grades, they separated the Mexican kids from the white kids, mainly because of the language problem that they were still learning English. So they thought it was better to keep them in separate classes. And after the 6th grade, 7th grade went to the high school, and we're all integrated then. So we never had any problem on the playgrounds, on recess or anything like that. But that's the way they had it set up. And I didn't even know about segregation until I got up into high school and heard about problems they had back in the southeast.
Were there many or any black families here then, or no?
No,
Okay, so mainly the lesser population or the fewer number of students that were not white were Latino or Indian, right?
right.
Okay. So what did your activities consist of down when you were growing up? What did you like to do for fun?
Well, with that light pole out in the middle of the circle, they had a light on it, so it illuminated the whole circle, and we played a lot of games under that, kick the can and run sheepy run and whatever some of them were called.
Did you spend much time at the river?
Oh, we're just walking around. I remember my mother told us as kids, my dad worked 6 days a week up in Jerome, and he left the house at 6 o'clock to drive up there. And she said during the Monday through Friday, to get us up to go to school was a chore. She had a heck of a time getting us up and out and everything like that. She said on Saturday, when my dad's car started up and we just got out of the circle, we 3 kids all hit the floor and put on our clothes, had breakfast, put an apple or an orange, something in our pocket, and headed for the river. walk all the way up to Sycamore Springs, all the way around Peck's Lake. We knew we had to be back home at 3:30 because that's when my dad got home, and we usually ate 4:30. So no, we had a big recreation on the river. We'd wade the river and walk up on the east side of the road, I mean on the river, all the way up to past Tapco and get down into Box Canyon.
Did you ever ride the burros up the river or over the lake, or were they turned loose at that time?
No, the burros were always around. I never did ride them myself. Most of the burros were small, and of course I was 6'4" when I was 13, so my feet would drag on the ground.
Yeah.
So I just would help people get on the burros. I didn't ever ride them.
I know the Mexican people down there went up and gathered wood with it up on Sea Mountain and all over,
Yeah.
and sold their wood to the people in town that couldn't afford a lot of coal.
Right.
Yeah.
But the burros were all turned loose, and
Oh, I
we
know.
just go down, get them and bring them up and put them in a garage and keep them for 2 or 3 days, and the Mexican kids would come up and take them back. And
Did you ever put them in the garage that was there at the bottom of First South? Because I remember those, and I was always afraid to go in there.
we put them in the garages that are on the back of First North over here,
Oh, okay.
because that's the ones that were designated for the people down where I lived on 16th First North. So we had a garage, but my dad didn't put his car in it, so we put burros in it.
Oh, okay.
Why were the burros in Clarkdale? What were they used for
They-
originally?
They used to be working, I don't know whether they worked them in the mine or whether they used mules only in the mine, but some of those mules and probably some of the burros never saw daylight. You know,
Yeah, because there was some of the shafts, I think, where
yeah,
you couldn't get a mule in there. You could take a burro in there.
yeah, they're
Wow.
small.
And, but they were just open range, you know, they just wandered all over, and there was a bunch of them, I know.
They loved our yard with the bamboos. They came in there and ate regularly.
Well,
I know.
that's why there's all fences around all the houses here, because you couldn't grow flowers, but
No,
something did grow, the sulfur smoke would kill it, or the burros would
or
kill
the
it.
burros. Now it's the javelina,
Yeah.
but back then it was the burros.
And there was a fence around the park. I mean, everything basically.
Yes, with
Yeah.
turnstiles.
Yeah, turnstiles,
Oh, yes.
And
that was put there to keep the animals out of the park.
What about the pipeline, the slurry pipe that went across? Did you walk across that to get out onto the other side, or did you go across the bridge?
I went across the bridge.
You were closer to the bridge.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was just where we were at, close to Main Street when it turned and
yeah.
crossed the old railroad bridge, or the old railroad, it was a railroad bridge that they got and put up across there because it was single lane. And cars coming down the hill, or one of them had to wait until the other got across before they could go across. And there used to be a few fights about who had the right of way. That I heard about, I didn't see any of that, but
Did you ever spend any time at the golf course?
not until in the high school. We started playing golf then. But it was a members only club at that time. And it was off limits to most of the kids, except he was going to be a caddy. And I didn't want to carry a bag of golf clubs, so I'd just stay on the road and we'd go walk around the lake. Go over there where they used to have a playground, had swings and one of those roly-poly things where you get on a chain with a handle on it and run around, and
Yeah.
managed to fall down a couple times, and it was always scratched up, but we didn't mind about that because we was having fun.
Mhm. What about the train? You remember, I mean, you were close to the train down there when it came in. How often did it come in?
Well, of course, every day. The only time it would come down the tracks, the Clarkdale train would be when they were going to pick up cattle at the stockyards. And they'd always bring down cattle cars and park them on the siding. So as kids, we knew the cows were coming in. And the ranchers driving the cattle would come over where the road cuts through the pass there now, just north of the Moose Lodge. And before that was dug out for a road, we could hear the cattle coming over that ridge, and we'd all run up to the stockyards to watch them come in. They'd drive them down into the canyon there, down to the river to get water, and we thought it was just to quench their thirst. But the ranchers wanted to fill up with water because they weighed more that way and you got more money. But I can remember the train coming from Clemenceau, of course, carrying their copper bars, but nothing close to what they did over at the Clarkdale smelter. And we used to walk down the tracks all the way through the curve down there, and then cut around to the left and go down to the river.
So the Clemenceau train came from Clemenceau through Clarkdale and then out up the canyon to Drake.
Yeah, they got on the main line.
Right.
They also use that for Standard Oil, Richfield, Texaco, all of them had their bulk
They had their
plants
bunk.
right there
Yeah,
in
right, yeah.
Clarkdale.
Yeah.
And those, how often did they deliver the oil? I mean, not every day, but.
No, but I'd say probably later on when there were more automobiles, probably at least once a week there'd be one or the other of the oil companies getting fuel oil and gasoline. They used to get the fuel oil for the wood, for the stoves in the houses.
And I remember Christensen's had their place out, which is kind of by the golf course now. I mean, you can't even get to it, but they had a bulk, or they had something out there. What was that?
On the other side of the river?
Yeah.
I don't remember anything
I
like
Okay.
don't remember anything like
Well, anyway, doesn't
that. I
matter.
remember Christensen,
Right,
but
George.
yeah.
Okay. What businesses were there? Do you remember as a little boy, the laundry? Do you remember the restaurant or the places for like a lodge?
Well, they had the Legion Hall down there close to the primary school building.
Right.
And then there was down on 3rd Street, just before you cross the tracks, there was a restaurant there. I forget what they used to call that, Mulligan or something.
I don't remember a restaurant there, but I remember like a lodge for miners or smelter workers, and that had a name and it burned down. But it was right there at the bottom of 3rd Street before you cross the tracks. But I don't remember a restaurant there. There was a restaurant across from the school on 2nd Street,
A Chinese restaurant?
Chinese restaurant, and there was also a lodging facility, like the one uptown,
Like
I believe.
the Upper Town Lodge, but
Yeah.
it was smaller, wasn't it? I
Yes, it
mean,
was smaller, yeah.
yeah.
Wasn't that where we had the scout headquarters later? Was
It
that
could have
building?
been, when I was in the Scouts, we went to the intermediate building.
Oh,
It was closed at that point. But there was a restaurant, Chinese restaurant,
Mhm.
and right next to it was a dormitory or
Something.
hotel or whatever. I don't remember just what it was.
Do you remember the Verde Hotel, Bob?
would that be where the two-story building they had, was it two-story or just one story?
It's where Katie Cannon's triplex is now.
That was kind of catty corner from the school,
Yeah.
yeah. But you may not have known the name.
'Cause it was two stories. My understanding
That's
is that
where
it
all the single miners lived there.
could be.
Yeah.
I think later on during the war, they had the Navajo Indians living in that hotel because so many of the smelter workers were in the service by then. But they had, I think they were all Navajos that they brought down from the reservation.
Mhm. Okay, what about your high school years? What do you remember? Did you play sports?
Yes, I can remember as a 7th grader, it was, I thought, getting big time when I got to get into the high school, 7th grade. And 7th and 8th, we didn't do too much that I remember. In freshman year, like I mentioned, I was 6'4" when I was 13. I played pretty good basketball, and I played my sophomore year I played football. That's the only year because I got sick and I couldn't take any blows, so I couldn't go out for football anymore, just basketball. And when I was ill with pneumonia up in Jerome Hospital, it was very serious, empyema. They had to tap my lung, put in a drain, and as a consequence, I went to hospital in the middle of June, or middle of July, and I didn't get out in time, and I couldn't go start school, so I missed which would have been my senior year in 1943. And I turned 18 in 43 and registered for the draft, and my older brother had applied into the Army Air Force and was trained as a pilot. So I thought I'd like to be in the Army Air Force. So I volunteered and went down to Phoenix and passed the test and did the physical exam the next morning, and came back and turned my papers into the draft board over in Prescott, above the post office. And so I didn't graduate from high school. And I got out of the service, I had to go take, I wound up and just take the civic exam. And they gave me my diploma, so I could go to University of Arizona. And started there in January 1956.
So when did you leave? When were you last in Clarkdale then?
Well, of course I got married while I was in the service. I married Elmer Riley's niece, Martha Riley.
And is this the Elmer Riley that was behind the Texaco station? That Riley? Not the laundry Riley?
No, Laundry Riley.
The laundry Riley?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Martha, okay. And you left in
Yeah.
43?
Well, to go into the service.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Martha's folks worked up in Winslow. Her dad was a cleaner also, and she had worked for the railroad up there while I was in the service. And then we left from there and went down to Tucson. I went through, graduated from the University of Arizona in 1949, and as a part-time job, I went to work for the Chevrolet dealer in Tucson, and as a car jockey, and installed seat covers. And when I graduated from school with an accounting degree in business, they put me in the office at the Chevrolet store. So I started my accounting service at that dealership.
Mm-hmm. Now your parents, Carl and Nellie, right?
Mm-hmm.
They stayed in Clarkdale.
No, my dad went up to Salem, Oregon during the war. His older brother Roy, the one that worked up in Jerome, was up there in the war industry. So he was able to go up there higher priority than working in the smelter as a carpenter. And they were up there during the war. And they moved back to Clarkdale in sometime in 1949, after I had graduated and stayed in Tucson.
Mm-hmm. So then they were here from 49 on, and when did you come back to Clarkdale?
To live?
Mm-hmm. To live.
Well, after, see, my grandmother, she had bought the house that I have now, and she stayed there while the folks were gone, and when they came back, they stayed with her for a while, and then she became ill, and they took her to Pioneers home in Prescott, and that's where she passed away. And my dad remodeled the house that I have now, and that's where they moved into that then the rest of their lives. My mother passed away in 1969, my dad in 1974, and I moved over here full time in 1985 or 86. As part-time, I worked for a Chevrolet dealer in Oxnard, California, and he agreed, I wanted to retire, and he agreed to let me come over here for 2 weeks each month and work over there for 2 weeks each month. So I did that for 3 or 4 years. And he was going to sell the dealership, so then I moved over here full time. So sometime between 1985 and 1990, I was over here full-time then.
And your dad at one point was the swimming pool, I mean, he took care of the swimming pool, didn't he?
Oh, yes, that's right. He had emphysema and he couldn't work in the carpenter business. And Tommy Sherman was managing the clubhouse and he was ready to retire. So my dad was able to get on as manager of the clubhouse and the swimming pool. And at that time they lived at that last home on the north side of Main Street up there at, well, just a block up from here. That house on the corner there.
Oh, I thought they lived over on 3rd South for some reason, but no, was in Main Street. Okay.
Did you ever bowl while you're, or set pins in that?
Oh, I bowled in high school.
I know they had a bowling team at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah. Not in any team or anything, I just bowled
For the fun.
fun of it, yeah. And, well, I became a pretty good pool player too, come to think of it. The year I was off recovering from my illness, I shot pool over at Bill Connor's and at the clubhouse too. And a couple of the pool shooters at Bill Connor's gave me some good tips and everything. And every Sunday afternoon at the clubhouse, there was 4 or 5 grown men that liked to shoot pool and played for a quarter, what do they call it, 8 ball or
9 ball.
9 ball, yeah.
Who were these men?
I
You can't remember?
I can't remember the name.
Okay.
And, but anyhow, they invited me to play one time. Because I'd been a lifeguard there at this swimming pool with Tommy Sherman. And so I was sitting in the pool hall at the clubhouse and the men came in and there was only probably 3 of them, so they invited me to play. So we had 4. And I wound up winning. You paid a quarter when somebody sunk your ball, and everybody paid you a dime when you sunk your own. And I think the first time I played, I probably made $2. And nobody fussed at me or nothing. And then, so I was in after that. So I'd be, every Sunday I'd be there to play pool and make 50 cents. Most I won $6 one time. But I was up in the $2 and $3 category quite a bit. And have a young fella beat those grown-ups, they just laugh at me and shake their head and pay. They didn't kick me off or anything.
When you were the lifeguard, the pool didn't have a filter system, did it?
No.
So what'd they do about keeping the water clean?
I drained it once a week.
Remember what
On
color it was
Thursday.
when they drained it?
Pardon?
Do you remember what color it was when they drained it?
It was kind of murky, but nobody seemed to mind about it.
Yeah.
I think Tommy Sherman just told you, don't open your eyes when you go underwater or something like that.
Dump in some extra chlorine.
Oh yeah, he charged it up pretty good.
Was there a pool down in Lower Town at that time, near Patio Town?
There was, but that was just for the Mexican kids for that.
Now, did they have a filter system down there?
I don't really know. But,
I understood that that's where they got the filter system that was later installed in the Upper Town pool.
oh, is that right? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
They had a filtered system in the Lower Town and
Yeah.
it was moved up later.
I remember one time when Ned Russell was talking at some function we had, and he told about his life in Clarkdale. And he said the pool up in Clarkdale was closed to Mexicans and Indians, and the pool down in Patio Park was closed to Indians. So we went over to the river where the dam was to divert water into Peck's Lake, and we swam over there. And he said we wouldn't be there very long until the Mexican kids and the white kids were over there with us. And we all had a good time. But we never could go to the white or the Mexican pools.
I remember that the pool always opened right the day after school closed. The
Right.
swimming pool opened. But before that, we would always go down and stop at Berrigan's and get candy and stuff and go on down and swim down there at the same place at the dam.
At the dam,
Yeah.
Well, it's always fresh water.
That's-
It was the cleanest place to swim, probably.
I remember that the pool in Lower Town, that Kenny Regal was a lifeguard, which I thought was,
Really?
at the Mexican pool, he was a lifeguard.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
My gosh. That's odd.
yes it is. I don't know whether they should have had somebody from down there.
You would
Mexican
think.
Town, there's enough of them down there that swim. But Jerome closed their pool 1 week, and the Mexicans used the pool for a week, and then they turned it over to the white guys for the next week. They would all come down here and swim in this pool. The white guys would come down and swim in the Clarkdale pool when the Jerome pool was closed.
I didn't know that. Oh my gosh. Oh, golly. Well, let's see, what about,
Cindy, what do you remember?
I'd like to know a little bit more about the Main Street business
the
block.
businesses?
Do you remember those businesses that were open and maybe who ran them?
The Rileys were open.
Yeah.
Because I heard there was a furniture store and various
Yeah,
things.
that was Chet Jones' dad had the furniture store up there on the, next to the park, the building there. And the theater was right next to it. And then Gasaway Drug Store was next. And then,
What years are we talking about here approximately?
when I was in high school,
Okay.
from
1940.
40, 43,
Mhm.
and next to, what did I say, Bill Connors?
You say
You-
Gasaway.
Get the
Oh,
drugstore.
Gasaway.
Yeah.
And then there was a barber shop, and then Bill Connor's facility,
Cigar store.
cigar
There was a
newsstand.
There was a place right next to the drugstore before you got to the barber
Right.
shop.
Oh, that's right, there was it became Selma's grocery store later.
You know, but, yes, Selma's grocery store, but before that, I think it was somebody else had a meat market in there.
Oh, really?
And we've got pictures that indicate that was a museum, or was it a museum? And we've got pictures of pots that they supposedly had in
From
Tuzagoot.
Tuzagoot.
Yeah,
Mhm.
in that room, and
In 1935
Yeah.
is what this map
Huh.
is showing us. Main Street. It's quite interesting, but it says museum. So we're
Well, I've been
trying to place what that might be, and then we have an additional photograph that shows women kind of assembling these pots.
Well, I remember that. I
Yeah.
thought that was down in the Selma, the big empty building on the end,
No,
but it's
we
not.
thought so too until we
Oh.
saw this map.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
fire insurance map.
Oh, wow.
On 9th Street though, there where the laundry facility is now, it used to be was it Pay and Take It or something?
yes.
Well, that was where they first had the Indian artifacts out of Tuzagoot were there. In that
Okay.
facility.
Do you know what happened to that building? Because the laundromat is blocks now, or is it brick? I'm trying to remember. I think the front is
it's
more.
almost brick.
Is it? Okay, never mind.
I just imagine it as brick. I know at one time it was a hobby shop. And Lefty James and
Tom Bell?
I can't think who else.
George?
Anyway, they had a hobby shop and they sold little airplanes that you could fly around, and but they had a wire on them, so you just go around in a circle. They weren't into the ones that,
They weren't mechanical.
no.
Yeah.
And they used to have races where they put these little tubes of gas or whatever it is, and you punch the hole in.
CO2 tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had races with those in that hobby shop.
And you mentioned the Gasaway. Is that a gasoline station?
No.
Or,
No, it was a
It
drugstore.
was the drugstore.
now, there was a gas pump on Main Street at one time.
I've seen that picture up on the corner there.
Yeah.
By where the furniture store was.
I think that one was for water. The gas pump I know of was right down there by Selma store. And there's
Yeah.
a separate little entrance there where you, but apparently go in and pay for the gasoline and then one
Oh.
pump
Yeah.
up there.
Oh.
But I
Yeah,
think
that's when
you
it-
see cars parked the wrong way up at the one on the corner. We've got pictures of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I've
But I
seen
think
that.
it was probably maybe air for the tires
Could be.
and water. Because every car boiled over when it.
I know, vapor locks.
Yeah,
I
vapor lock,
remember
yeah.
vapor locks just
Yeah.
going to Jerome even,
Yeah.
so.
Do you
And
remember?
the gas station, Texaco, of course, and King's Cafe.
Texaco came in there about 1940,
Okay,
and
Yeah.
Mo Linder was the one that had that service station first.
really?
And Bud Linder used to work in it.
And then King's Cafe was there, of course.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
one of the
King's
first
Cafe.
buildings too.
And those were the only two on that side, right? Just King's Cafe and the
Yeah,
Texaco.
Well-
until 1012.
But they built
Well,
later.
I know that
59.
when, who was the owner and his wife, they had the bar
Oh,
there.
Blatchford's had it, I know for a while.
Uh-huh.
Ken Blatchford.
No,
Pe- Peckridge?
No.
Yeah,
Matt
that's what he's
Neva.
trying to
Oh,
remember. Matt Neva,
okay,
Matt
there
Neva.
was a,
but that was much later,
there was a bar in the back of that restaurant,
right, in the King's.
in King's Cafe, yeah. And they had a dance hall back there too.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember mentioning to Ed King one time that, our male teachers and our coach, I said, none of them drank. I thought that was always nice that, you never saw them in a bar or anything, and, the drinking there at Connor's bar, the beer, and he said, well, that's not true. He said, go into the restaurant, Chinese restaurant, and go into the back. There was a door there you went through, and they closed that door, and they served booze back there. And Goddard and Ensign and the other male school teachers were back there drinking.
What about the tennis courts? Did you ever play tennis or
Played
not?
tennis when we found out that girls were girls. We had to get a tennis racket and go up there and play tennis. And I never could keep from hitting the ball outside the fence, which was up about 20 feet. So I wasn't a tennis player.
But you were enjoying the girls.
Enjoying the girls.
And then the lodge, was Amy Roberts there at that time? Or
Yes,
yeah.
Amy Roberts. Well, talking about the bar, when after I, let's see, I guess after I was getting around all right after my illness, and I was learning to shoot pool. Bill Connor asked me one day if I'd work in the soda fountain. Because Berger Kane was working in a soda fountain too. And I said, oh, that'd be nice. He said, well, when you go home, you tell your dad to come up and see me before I hire you. So that evening I told my dad, and he got right in the car before we had dinner and drove up there. And Bill Connor set him down and he said, Carl, I want you to know that Bob's going to be in the soda fountain doing ice cream and soft drinks. Will have nothing to do with tobacco, beer, or the packaged liquor. And my dad said, that's fine, Bill. Came home laughing like crazy. And I think it was either the second or third day I was there, I was pumping beer, selling cigars, packaged liquor. Nobody ever said a word to me.
And you were in high school.
And I was in,
You were that age.
I was that age.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear any stories about the bank robbery?
Oh yeah, that was a big thing because that happened in 28. And I forget, May or something?
June.
June. Because we came up in September 28. So that was still a hot topic as far. And Bill Roberts, he lived down, well, this side, on the west side of the tracks, up in the frame houses up there is where he lived.
Jim Roberts?
Jim Roberts.
Oh, now explain that again. Where did he live?
Down there,
On this side of the tracks.
Park, is it Park that turns off there, the road, off of 89A,
Oh, off of Broadway?
off of Broadway, yeah. And goes down to the homes across.
Yeah, that's called Park.
Yeah. And I think it was the last, there was 2 rows of houses on the right and then the 1 row on the left there when you got down. But Bill Roberts was in the first one on the 2nd row.
I wondered where he lived.
Yeah.
That was called Standard Oil Hill when I,
Yeah, that was
or
referred to.
Wiggins, was it called
Wiggins,
Wigginsville or
that was
something?
Wigginsville at one time,
Yeah,
because there was 2 brothers and a father that moved up. The father was farming down in Phoenix, and Clyde Wiggins' dad, he didn't want to be a farmer, so he heard about jobs at the smelter in Clarkdale, so he came up here and moved into a house there on that row. And his brother came up then, and his dad says, heck, I can't have you guys up here not working for me, so he moved up here too. So there's 3 houses at one time, and each one of them had a Wiggins in it. So that's where he got his name, Wigginsville, also.
were those Wiggins, the ones that had the Wiggins Dairy down in Cottonwood?
Yeah, that was the father.
Okay.
Because he went up to that open field just west of Tapco,
Uh-huh.
and had been a farm there one time. It was a ramshackle house there. He moved into that, and he started his dairy there. And he couldn't compete with the Clarkdale dairy for Clarkdale, so that's when he moved down there, Cottonwood there, this side of Bridgeport.
And of course, down there he was competing with Mangini.
Mangini
Yeah.
And the Jerome Dairy.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, there were a lot of dairies.
Yes, there were.
So,
Was Jim Roberts any relation to Amy Roberts?
No, not that I know of.
No.
There was, Amy Roberts had a husband at one time, and we seen that in that,
Phone book.
yeah.
What, do you remember the stories about the bank robbery? Does anything stand out? Or is it the stories that we still know today?
Well, Clyde Regan's dad was in the bank when that happened. And I have his written experiences, and I turned that over, copy of that to the Historical Society.
Right, we have
also.
that, right.
Yeah. And he was back in the vault, or in the cage there, and they wanted to put him in the vault. That's when the bank manager talked him out of that because they would die in there, and then instead of bank robbery, they'd be up for murder. So that's when the bank robbers agreed. And they went out the door to get in their car. And the bank manager had a key up on the railing of that
The door.
The vault?
no, the what you call that metal screen thing.
Oh, the day cage?
Slide around, and he had picked up the key, unlocked it, went to his desk, grabbed his gun, and went out the door, and he was supposed to have shot it. And I think his bullet was the one that hit that railroad watch of somebody standing over there by the post office at
Right,
that
Lee,
time.
Lee Snyder, uh-huh.
Yeah. And of course, the bank robbers going down, and Bill Roberts is at the corner, leaning there in the sunshine. They turned the corner, and the bank manager was hollering bank robbery by that time. So that's when Bill Roberts shot the driver in the back of the head. And I always heard that he went over and somebody there tackled the other guy, the other bank robber. And Bill Roberts told him, he said, just turn him loose. He said, I'll handle him in a hurry. He was going to shoot him too.
Do you remember seeing in the Industrial Arts building where the bullet went through the window into the wall?
Yeah.
That was there until
That hole
school
was there,
closed.
and I don't know, I thought surely they would save that when they remodeled it for the
Post office, yeah.
And I was going to mention that to somebody, but when I came up back from California or something, well, it was already gone. And nobody knew anything about it. They didn't know there was a bullet hole in there.
Was that from the bank robbery?
Yes.
And it was then, boy, there was some wild shooting going on.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
for it to go over there.
Yeah, somebody had to be on the corner there. And
Yeah, and shoot in
down.
that
Yeah,
direction,
Jim Roberts,
kind of
he-
toward the church.
That was, one of his shots went through that.
But it was funny, the glass didn't break, it just had a hole
Hole.
through
Yeah.
the glass and a hole through the wall right above the door
Yeah.
Wow.
that walked out into the shop.
And this was in June, so maybe there were no kids at school.
No, there wasn't anybody
No.
in school.
That's good.
My dad was there after it happened, and he looked at the car, and the car had buckets of nails and roofing tacks, yeah.
Roofing tacks.
To put out on the road?
Yeah.
They were going to scatter
And
it.
he said that on the car, they had only 3 lug nuts in case they had a flat tire, they could change it fast.
Oh,
Only 3 lug nuts, and they were headed for the airport, throwing these tracks out. That's what their plan was,
Yeah.
so nobody could follow them.
it was well thought out.
Yeah, and they had a plane out there that was waiting to take them off.
Anyhow, the bank manager then, he ran down to the scene where the driver was dead, still slumped over the wheel. But the other bank robber saw the bank manager, and he said, "You lied to me. I'm going to come back and get you." And he escaped a couple times from Florence jail, and they always called the bank manager, and he'd leave town. But they always captured the guy before he got too far away from jail anyhow. But the bank manager, he believed, he remembered the guy said that he was going to get even with him.
Huh. Wow. Amazing.
You bring up a lot of thoughts that I've forgotten about, that, thinking about what I was gonna say when I got up here.
Well, that's why it's good to kind of
Well,
brainstorm.
that was my fault, I didn't read that, but,
Yeah. Anything else stand out in your mind? What about, did you ever hike up the mountain to paint the sea?
oh yes, as a freshman. And you brought any old brooms or any kind of an old mop, and the school had the buckets for the lime and the water. And we'd meet over at the smelter yard outside the red fence. And you can look at that hill that goes up there now. And I don't know how even teenagers could hike that thing, but we went up that, no problem. Carrying, each of us had a 5-gallon bucket of water and lime in each hand, in both hands. And walking up there and stopping and walking some more. And the girls, they carried the brooms and the mops. And we got up there and we would put out the lime on the rocks, and then they'd throw cups of water out to dampen it, and some of us be there with a broom and a mop, swabbing it to clean up the rocks a little bit. But I'm not sure we did a very good job of it,
But you had fun.
but we had fun. Not because we were, on that, what they call it, ditch day,
Yeah,
the freshmen had to go up to see the rest of the school. Students were out. That was the day off for the students. That was this day for the rest of the classes, but the freshmen had to go up there for initiation.
didn't you go up in modern times and paint it with a sprayer?
No, I never got to do that.
Didn't Mickey Ryan do that?
Yeah, after they built that road
Yeah,
up there.
When you could drive up.
We
Yeah.
could drive up
Yeah.
and have all the
I thought you were.
paraphernalia that you could spray it. Because I remember coming up one time, that's when I worked in Phoenix, when they sprayed it. And it did stand out, very clean sea.
Yeah,
And, looked better than the sea in Clemenceau and one in Camp Verde even.
Bob, do you remember Geary Heights? Do you
Yes,
remember what was out there?
well,
You can talk
I
about
don't
it.
want to talk about that.
Well, what do you remember?
Well, I just remember it was a house of ill repute.
they had a dance hall there, didn't they?
Yeah.
Looking out, and a bar.
Ladies of the night
Yeah,
were the dancers, and I can't tell a story about my uncle, but he stayed in one of those little bungalows with a person that said she was pregnant. And she named 3 people, possibles, fathers. And my uncle was one of them. And he was single, the other 2 were married. So he told me, he said, that's no problem. He said, I'll go marry her. I'm not married. So they actually got married. And a couple, 3 months later, found out she wasn't pregnant. So there was no trouble getting a divorce. And I know that from the family talking over the years. That I think my dad might have played. My dad played the fiddle and called square dances. And when we first got out here from Kansas, that was a good side job for him because the dude ranches were in full swing then, and he got to play at all the dude ranches, play the fiddle and call square dances. And the favorite job that I liked, the favorite thing I did, was once a month they had a dance at Mormon Lake, and on a Saturday night, and we would all go up there, and we got a cabin free, and they barbecued for food that night, and had the dance hall. And my mother and grandmother would help with the barbecue and setting up the food and everything. And my dad would play the square dance, and then they'd break and we'd get to eat. So we got a free cabin, all we could eat. And my dad got $5 and a tank full of gas for playing up there. So he always waited during the week and about filled up his car, just left enough gas in there to get up to Stoneman Lake and get a full tank of gas out of it.
Did he ever play at Gary Heights?
I think he got probably a couple times out there. But
Because I remember Barbara DeVault told me that she and Bud went out there and had dinner and danced at Gary Heights.
yeah,
And they came here in 1951, so it was still going.
yeah, but my dad wasn't doing that at that time though.
Right.
He was earlier than that.
Okay.
But he used to have that pavilion over in Peck's Lake at the
Right.
golf course around.
Yeah,
And
the
there was
pavilion.
a lot of dances in that.
Right.
I used to go, years later, we'd go over there to dance. But, Evan Derrick, my next door neighbor, he played a guitar and a mandolin, and he would play in the band over there.
Yeah, he played with my mother and dad
Yes, yes.
over there a lot. Yeah.
Petey and Terry was the best thing that happened over there. And they also would play in the clubhouse.
Yeah, Clark Memorial.
Clark. No, I mean the golf course clubhouse.
Oh, right.
There's a fireplace over in one corner. And
What other things went on out there at Peck's Lake? I heard some stories of boat races and,
yeah, that was when Bill Clark III was still alive. And they had boat races out there. And also they had airplane races out of Clemenceau. With those small, stubby propeller planes they had in those days. And they'd fly to Peck's Lake, around the smokestacks, and back to the airport. And they were timed on that to see who won. And then the boat races, I remember going to a couple times, but I never did see you. They were just charging back and forth on their motorboats, but I didn't see any races or anything that they were doing.
Do you remember seeing the planes flying around? Okay.
The boats must have raced up to where the causeway was, to number 8 Green. Was that there? 'Cause
That's about the biggest place there is.
yeah. I've seen pictures of the cars up on top of the hill,
Oh.
and they were all watching the
Watching the
boat
race.
races, yeah.
Yeah,
That was before the lake was so infested with the weeds.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What about Oak Creek Canyon? Did you go up there much? Anything?
oh, just for picnics. That was before television, so my parents always liked picnics. And we'd go up there and stay overnight in the summertime,
Camp.
camp out,
Yeah.
and have dinner at night, and then breakfast the next morning,
And
cooked over a campfire.
did you go up on Mingus too?
Yes, mostly to the hog, let's see what they call it, the hogback where the summit is,
Potato patch?
potato patch.
Right.
And,
There was an upper potato patch
There was
and lower.
upper and lower. Upper,
Okay.
was the Methodist camp up there at that time?
yes. Yeah. I know my dad, he seemed like he was called for jury duty a few months and had to go all the way to Prescott and driving that 27 Chevy. And he always had a couple of guys riding with him, but he'd have to drive over there and back each day. But then they said if you volunteered as a fireman, volunteer fireman, you were exempt from jury duty. So my dad did that. And once a year, the firemen would have a picnic, ice cream festival up on Potato Patch. And I didn't eat too much of anything except ice cream because they had lots of ice cream for some reason. And I'd get the biggest bowl they would take up there and a big spoon. And they'd put half a gallon of ice cream right in my dish. I had to carry it with two hands.
Was it homemade ice cream out of the, did they churn it themselves?
Oh, no, this was done, so I don't know where the ice cream plant made ice cream.
Well, Borden's had a place in Cottonwood.
Yeah, that's probably where
You
it was.
remember the ice plant down?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Did you go over and get ice there?
Well, that was delivered. We had an ice box,
Mm-hmm.
and the size ice box we had was hold a 25-pound chunk ice. And the ice, I think, was 300 pound, which came out made in 300 pound. And us kids always liked to see them coming down because they delivered quite often. Any house that had a jingle bell, they'd jingle, you know when they're coming. And we'd always follow it and get chips of ice off there to suck on and put in the water, have cold water. That was quite a project for young kids.
Did they deliver coal down to your house?
No, never got cold. My dad went out and we had a wood stove.
Okay.
And which is another, he was a good shotgun shot for rabbits, cottontails. And I always liked to go along to get the wood because I knew he was going to shoot cottontails. And we were going to have a fried cottontail, fried potatoes, and rabbit gravy for breakfast that night, homemade bread. We were really going to chow down. So that was always nice.
Did your dad hunt deer on the Mingus?
No, he wasn't a hunter. He didn't, not rifle. He hunted one time with a rifle, and there was Bill Hill that lived down in the house next to us, between us and the Derricks. And he talked my dad into going. He brought him a 30-30 rifle. And he went up at Sycamore Pass, up on the Black Mountain, and hiked down Black Mountain. Never saw a deer. And my dad wore a hole in the shoes he was wearing. He didn't have regular hiking boots or anything. So he said that was all deer hunting he was ever going to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did your mom shop at the grocery store up at, was it Selna's?
No, he shopped over in Cottonwood. My dad, he didn't like to be up in a company-controlled part of town, the grocery store. So we always went to Cottonwood to shop. And go to the movies. And of course, we'd go to the movies in Clarkdale too, but
Did you ever work in the smelter?
yes, when I came back from the service, Second World War, to get my diploma, I forget now when they got out of the service, August, I think, yeah. And Henry Lyon gave me a job at the concentrator. He was concentrator foreman. Gave me a job at the concentrator. And Martha and I stayed in an apartment up in the second floor of the building next to the park there, across from the park.
Above Jones Furniture.
Across from Jones Furniture. And I worked shift work, which made me all the more determined to go through college because I wasn't going to do shift work again.
Was the Peccary, was the dental office up there when you lived in the apartment?
Yeah, but it was also there when I was a young kid because I had a tooth pulled up there one time, which was painful. But my grandmother bought me an ice cream cone, and that was better then.
Right.
But I was 6 or 7 years old, I think.
Do you remember the long walk up the wooden stair?
Oh, yes.
And the smell?
Yes. Yeah.
Still gives me nightmares.
Was Peckridge the doctor when you?
That was Ray.
Ray or Joe?
Well,
Was
Wasn't
it
Joe always in
McMillan?
Jerome?
McMillan?
They were both up in Jerome.
oh,
But
okay,
there was a McMillan that had the
Oh.
dental office before.
okay,
That's
When they, yeah,
McMillan was the one that did mine.
yeah.
oh, okay,
He lived across the street from me
Yes.
on First North.
okay. The Joneses that had the furniture store lived in this house. That's way back when.
And they also lived in the corner house across the street from me. Chet Jones and
Yeah,
his wife.
well, one of the Jones kids came by here one time and asked, they were taking pictures, and did they come in the house?
Well, I saw them and I said, "Are you looking for somebody?" I said, "Well, we used to live here." And I said, "Would you like to come in?" I was getting ready to go to work at the Blazing M Ranch. I had my Western clothes on. All. Anyway, they said, "We sure would." So I let them in, and I should have walked through the house first probably. There was probably my pants laid on the bed or something, I don't know. Anyway, they came through and walked through, and they promised us a disc of this book when they finished writing it, Mr. Jones' Life. But we never got it.
No.
Oh,
And her,
Peggy Jones, was it? No, it's not, no, that's a different Jones.
I believe her footprint is in the
That-
cement down here.
Right, it is.
Peggy Jones lived in the corner house by the tennis court.
Okay, yes,
Hmm.
because
And
she was,
her husband worked in the office down there, the
Utility office.
Yeah,
Mhm. Okay,
with your dad probably.
Her husband was Art Jones, wasn't it? Peggy
Yeah,
Jones.
Art.
Art and Peggy.
Because my dad had done some carpenter work for Art Jones, and also Bill Connor, and George Jones, the superintendent of schools. And my dad worked a short time up at the Zulu mine by Payson. He'd go up on early Monday morning and come back late Friday evening. And he was, of course that was back in the Depression times and money was short. And he, when they left on Christmas Eve afternoon, they handed him his pink slips. He and two guys that rode up there with him. And so he was out of work. He came down and took one fellow up to his house and the other fellow to his house. And they stopped to get the mail. And Art Jones saw him and came running out. He said, "Carl Beltz, I've been looking all over for you. I have a job for you up in Jerome. Where in the heck have you been?" Dad said, "Oh, I was working up at the Zulu mine in Payson." He said, "Well, you can go to work in Jerome." So the 26th My dad went to work in Jerome in
Oh, wow.
1933.
Hmm.
And so he wasn't out of a job when he got home. He had a job Christmas Eve.
What did he do up there in Jerome for the mine?
He worked on the 500 level as a carpenter,
Oh.
worked in the carpenter shop. They had a lot, the big log braces or whatever they used. Timbers. They always got those into the carpenter shop first to size them and everything, whatever they needed. It was their main job there.
Do you know where those timbers came from?
No. They came in on the railroad though. Because as you all know, they used to get them off of Ingus, come down wood chute, slide them down wood chute, till they denuded all the pine trees on top of Ingus. But I forget now, there was a big company back east that was in the logging business, and they cut all the timbers for the mining in one size, and they brought them in on flatbed railroad cars, and parked them there at the 500 level and unloaded them there.
Did you ever go to Hopewell when it was, the people were living there and it was operation?
Yeah, I can remember they had they had their pools of water there, didn't they? At
Well, they
Hopewell?
had some that they threw cans in and,
That was later though,
Later
wasn't
on,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, that was later.
Because my dad, he did some carpenter work there when he was working for the mining company. He did some carpenter work at Hopewell. And a few times he'd have to go back up after shift, or he only worked days. When people left, when the workers left, he'd go back up there to do something, finish something that he couldn't do while they were there. And I used to get to ride with him up in the car. That was the only thing I did in Hopewell.
The people lived up there, didn't they?
Oh, yes.
There were houses. Do you remember what was up there, or were you just too young?
No, I remember houses being there, but,
Was there a school?
yeah, I think there was. This has come up before. Because Ruth Derrick, she was married to Joe Derrick, one of the Derrick boys. And she lived up there before she got married. And she mentioned a school, and there was a little store there too. But I think sometime I saw, it might be in your files down at the society, that I might have had some pictures of a store and the school in Hopewell, I think. But I remember talking about it, and I remember Ruth, she went to school there as a teenager.
Was there a road to Hopewell, or was it strictly by rail?
No, the road was up, the first road they had was just up on the Jerome Road. Well, they still call it the Hopewell
Okay,
Road.
okay.
Same road.
Sure, it's the
And
same,
when
that's
you
the same
Come down
road.
that steep hill
Goes by the slaughterhouse.
and yeah, it goes by the slaughterhouse. And that was before they built the road up from Cement Plant Road, which wasn't there, of course.
Did you tell us about a turkey ranch that was at Peck's Lake? Or a chicken ranch or something?
Well, it was supposed to have been a turkey ranch. Ed King gave me pictures of that. But you have the pictures, copies of the pictures that he gave me, and said that was a turkey ranch. and it was across where the crossing from the 7th hole on the golf course to the 8th hole on the other side. And it was an open spot just to the south of where the path was coming from the number 7 hole, shows in the pictures.
But that was there before the golf course
Oh,
was
yes,
there?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know who ran that?
No, I don't.
Okay, what would surprise us? What story would surprise us that you know? Can you think of anything?
No, I don't really.
What made you come back to Clarkdale and live?
Well, I hated to leave in the first place. I always said I was going to retire back here, and in fact, my folks, after my dad remodeled the house, they put my name as owner of the house while they still lived there. I mean,
And was he alive when you came back?
yeah,
He was doing the pool.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, not when I came back to live, no, my grandmother was still living in that house.
Oh,
When he, no, he was living in that house after my mother died. He was living in the house. And my wife's mother and Ruby Derrick, next door neighbor, would fix meals for him and do washing for him and everything.
and your brother Duke Beltz, his name was Don, is that
Don,
right?
Don, yes.
Don, and he was younger than you?
Yes.
And he was quite a hit in Hollywood?
Oh yeah, he got into acting. He was an accomplished painter. He went through high school up in Salem, and when he got out of the service, he got into service, the last part, in the paratroops. He never got overseas. His favorite thing was to say that he took off 26 times in an airplane and never landed in it. The first time he got in the plane, they bailed out to come and practice. And anyhow, he, with GI Bill, he went to the artist school up in San Francisco. And that's where he perfected his painting. And has some real nice pictures that he painted. But he, as a part-time job when he was in San Francisco, going to the painting school, he worked in a theater, one of the theaters, as a manager. And he was night manager of one of the theaters there, and it was the one that they always premiered any new movies that they were doing, premiered in San Francisco. And he premiered 2 or 3 times for Jeff Chandler starring in a movie. And he liked Duke. Duke had a good gift of gab. In fact, he would get on stage when they were premiering and introduce everybody and then turn it over to the movie people to talk about the picture, whatever they did. So Jeff Chandler told him one day, he said, Duke, if you come down to Hollywood, we'll see about getting you into acting. That's the worst thing that ever happened to him. He came down and he started working part-time on movies, and he became a pretty good supporting actor and did several of the Have Gun Will Travel. I can't think of the cowboy in that picture.
Hmm.
And I can't remember some of that. But he did quite a few part-time. And
He was a handsome devil.
yeah.
Did he come to Clarkdale at all? I mean, very much?
Oh yeah, he used to come over and visit.
But he didn't live here.
No, he wouldn't come back to Clarkdale.
But his daughter Susan lived here.
No, that was my older brother's.
Oh, I thought Susan was Duke's.
No, that was my older brother Irvin. He
Oh, okay.
lived back in Iowa.
Oh, okay.
He married the farmer's daughter, Irvin did, and was on a raised corn and soybeans.
Okay.
And that was Susan. And the Duke's daughter, Heidi, was injured in a car crash in a movie stunt that they had. And she was paralyzed from the neck down.
Oh,
And, but she lived to be 52. But she had to be taken care of all the time.
hmm.
And
Well-
of course, you know, Susan was killed on the road coming down from Jerome.
Right. Yeah. That was about 58? Was it that late? I think it was
I
around
think it
then.
was later than
Or
that.
60, maybe it was 63. Yeah, it was after we were gone.
It was while your dad was in the clubhouse.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And how long, when did he, I think that was in the 60s, so.
Yeah, that was 62.
62 or 63 that she
Okay.
was killed. Yeah. Well, can you think of anything else you want to bring up? Talk about?
Did you think of anything that you didn't butt in and talk about while I was talking?
No. I had written down some stuff on that paper that
Right, the Clemenceau and Clemenceau to Clarkdale train, Yeah. yeah. Tex Lake rowboat, you got that. Turkey Ranch. Butcherville, yeah. Yeah, Butcherville, that's always the way I remember it.
yeah. And I don't think they did any butchering on there. I think that's where the butchers lived.
That's where the butcher lived, that's right.
Because they had the slaughterhouse would be where they would cut the meat up.
And was that up here, the
Yeah.
slaughterhouse?
Yeah, that slaughterhouse is, well, down below my house where you go all the way up to the slaughterhouse and the road ends right there.
Right.
Because I remember as a kid, we thought that Butcherville was where a husband killed his wife.
Oh,
And then I found out he was a butcher, but he worked in the store cutting meat up in the main part of Clarkdale and up at the slaughterhouse too. He was a butcher. And this, in fact, when I was, I forget how old I was, but I delivered the Prescott Courier in Lowertown. I don't know, was a freshman? I probably was a freshman in high school.
on your
I had
bicycle?
my own bicycle.
Mhm.
And the post office, where it was, the mail truck from Prescott brought over the mail and the Prescott Courier every afternoon. And a guy would get out of school, I'd go over there and wait for it to get there. Donald Greenwood took care of Uppertown. And they lived in the first house on First South. Anyhow, I think I had the low 20s customers in Lower Town. My first one was to Butcherville, the first house in Butcherville. And I think that was, the Gosricks lived there. And the Gosricks were very active killing coyotes and mountain lions. And they got $25 a piece for a coyote or something like that in those days.
Wow.
But anyhow, that was my first customer. The next one, I had 2 customers over in Santa Fe town. And I used to, from there, I'd take my bike across the sewer flume. Describe where it is.
Down by Berrigan's?
Yeah.
Now, where's Santa Fe town?
That was railroad town.
Right
Where
by the
where the parking lot is now.
Oh, okay.
The houses were there.
Oh,
They had houses there. All of them were red, Santa Fe red.
by the depot.
By the depot, across the road from the depot.
And they're all gone now.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, George Turner's there, and people anyway, Cotner's, and then Snyder's. There's only 3, because Snyder and the Turners were the 2 customers I had over there. And then I had a couple on 3rd Street, and I don't remember where they all were. And the last one was the O'Brien house, way down right by the river there, next to the single lane bridge across the river. And that was my last customer.
So you covered some territory on that
Oh, yeah,
bicycle.
Yeah. And I did it when it was raining, and a couple times it snowed on me. But 3 or 4 times my dad would come pick me up. He had a 34 Chevrolet. It was his first new car he bought from Molinger. And he could open the trunk of that car and put the bicycle in there and tie down the hood to hold the bicycle in, and finish the paper out and take me home. But usually it wasn't raining too hard, he just waited for me to get home.
Wow. Well, it sounded like you had plenty to do while you were growing up in Clarkdale.
Well, I did, and you asked me a while ago about why I came back to Clarkdale, because I said that I always wanted to live back here. And the longer it went, the more I wanted to get back. So that's the best place I've ever lived, I think.
Well, we're glad you're here.
That's why we're all here.
That's right. That's right.
Probably a good way to end.
Oh, I think so.
Verde Valley is the best place in the world.
It has everything.
Clarkdale's the 2nd safest town in Arizona,
Yeah.
That's right.
next to the prison city of Florence. That seems so odd to me.
I know it doesn't.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Bob. We really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you. That was great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll hope that I can make